Welcome to the Coach's Decision. Disclaimer. The views, language, and candor expressed on this series are designed to provoke thought and conversation amongst adults. Some opinions and perspectives may be unsuitable for those who are emotionally weak. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, folks. Welcome to A Coach's Decision with Chris Piri, where we dive into topics each week that could help you or someone close to you get through. My clients are skilled at the game of life, but there are times when you have to protect the players from themselves. There are times where you need a coach's decision. My top client and producer has decided to give you, the audience, a glimpse into his sessions each week to help him navigate these moments live. What you got for us this week, bro?
Yeah, so this week I wanted to talk a little bit about contracts. So we had a couple of sessions on contracts. And it seems like a lot of arguments, complainers, naggers, a lot of misunderstanding came from contracts or understood contracts or no contract. So first, can you just define contract?
Absolutely. So I think classically, we always think that contracts are confined to written legal documents that exist in the court of law or in business. But in fact, every day you're exposed to contracts that are binding. Verbal contract is actually used in legal terms. So I wrote contracts for numerous years for Fortune 500 companies. And one of the things that people are surprised by is that if you write a contract is predicated on the understanding that the two individuals have, no matter what the language says. If y'all have a common understanding and y'all agree to it and y'all vibe with it, that is legally binding. In fact, even once that contract expires, if you're acting in the same frame of the contract rules and regulations, the contract then is actually extended beyond the expiration date. So if I hire you for a service and you say, this is what I need you to do for this amount of bread, and you're giving me that money and I'm giving you that service, even though the paperwork has expired, we're still acting within the legal frames of a contract. But what happens in relationships and what happens in friendships and other dynamics is we tend to say stuff and be bound by the contract that we create with our mouths, with our intentions. And unfortunately, people don't take the severity in those type of contracts that they do in the legal ones that are presented in a business sense or in a court of law. So in relationships, in friendships, having the ability to stick by what you say what you mean what you say, and ride out. When I was a kid, they used to say, all I got is my word and my balls, right? And so you would have to abide by those things and really mean what you have going on, as opposed to just talking tough and talking big and not being really about it. So I think that that's where, when we talk about contracts from a social construct, that's what we mean by contracts.
Okay, so can you give us an example of a friendship contract?
Absolutely.
Being broken?
Absolutely.
Or just an example?
Absolutely. So I think that one of the things that we have to understand is some things are implied. Let me give you a great example. That's a common theme. I know where I'm from and I know where you're from, same deal. You let somebody use your car and drop you off at work because they don't have a ride. There should be an understood dynamic that when you say, I get off at 9, they should be appreciative enough to be on time to pick you up. Real simple. Like, this seems simple. They should be appreciative enough to put some petrol in your tank. Now we at the form of electric vehicles and things like that, so it can get a little more complicated. But they shouldn't bring your car back on empty and dented and smelling, bad on the inside, right? There's a social contract that has been established that when I'm extending this service to you or this favor or opportunity to you, you then give me some type of consideration that you should abide by. It shouldn't be that. A lot of times what I'm realizing when I talk to some of my clients now, and I'm not going to just blame it on the younger generation. We always do that all the time. These younger folks feel entitled. They feel like you're just supposed to do stuff because they was born and because they're on this earth. Now, some old people that do the same thing, that feel entitled. And respect is earned. Respect is earned and demanded. But it's not a situation where you come in with too much confidence, come in with too much respect. And so the idea of if I'm doing something that I feel is to help the tribe, help the village, then I expect to have some type of reciprocity in how you approach my gift, how you approach me extending myself in that frame. And I believe that's a contract. That's an understood, it's an implied contract.
I disagree a little bit. I think that's where most misunderstandings come in.
Okay.
I think common sense is a bad contract. Whenever you say common sense should tell you this, common sense should do that, you already lost the argument. because common sense is not something that everybody has. That's just a rapper.
Absolutely, absolutely. Common. He dropped the sense because of legal reasons. But the issue is this: it's not a situation where I would expect for you and your friends, or you and your lady friend, to have to write down and diagnose everything that's going to occur verbatim. Some things is a feeling. Some things is just being raised right, and some things is who you engage in a non-written contract with. Right? I understand that you are not illiterate, not even a little bit, right? So the situation is you have to get into relationships, get into situations and dynamics where if you don't know this person and you haven't fooled this person in the past, over communicate, over explain, let the thresholds be known. Hey, my brother-in-law has a great, and I would advise anybody to abide by this. If you borrow money from him, he will tell you from the giddy up, I don't loan money to people that owe me money. He has just established terms of this contract. Now, he didn't say I break kneecaps when people don't come back with my money, because that's not part of his contract. Some people, that's their get down. A lot of people feel like I don't loan money. I just give money. I've heard that before. I don't, whatever your situation is, I'm not going to say do that or don't. I do know the old adage is don't loan money you can't afford to not get back. I've heard that before. But the idea of letting somebody know, because people that borrow, they're borrowers. This is what they do. And they will use you as an ATM if you allow for it. And so in the idea of what you're saying, you shouldn't have to explain everything. In the beginning, every master was an amateur at some point. So when you're mastering your relationships, relationships are learning to relate to that other person. When you have these relationships, over-explain up front and establish a baseline. Once you establish that baseline, either they're in violation or they might have misheard what you had said up front.
So a contract is something that's written or verbal.
That's correct.
So why'd you just say it could be a feeling?
Because it's understood that the terms of the contract have to have some type of civility involved. There has to be a situation where, I know you want to call it common sense, but there's just some you know who you're dealing with, right? It's like they say there's no honor among thieves. You know when you get in bed with thieves, some shady stuff might come off. You know it shouldn't be a situation where I don't need an itemized receipt from the church, okay? I don't need that. I know how you are. I don't require that when I give love offerings and all this and that, what that all went to. I don't need that from the Salvation Army either. Either I'm going to give it or I'm not, and it either is or it ain't. But some people feel like they need to know every single, if you call me and ask me to borrow anything, you don't have to, either I'm going to give it or I'm not, but you explaining the story. So many people come forth with the story and want to tell you the reason as to why. I don't care. Either I got it to give you or I don't have it to give you. You either have good credit with me or you don't. That's not just financial. That's with other things as well. That's with my emotions. I'm not going to fool with you. If you say, hey, I got tickets to the game, and I'm like, cool. Wait, what day? Saturday. Cool. And you fake, you've built up enough equity to where you can fake once. I'll be damned if you fake on me twice, and then I keep falling for that. That banana in the tailpipe. So you break contracts. I have to establish who you are as a contract holder. And so no, I understand that you're saying, I don't want to have to babysit this person. But if you're around somebody that needs babysitting, yes, you do. Yes, you do. You can't be around somebody that you've identified that needs their handheld, that never has enough money, that always got a downtrodden story, and get mad when they are who they are. That's shame on you.
So that means their credit is bad.
That is absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. But you got to monitor.
So, but it's your contract. If you're loaning the money, it's your contract. So you have to fill out. If I want the story, I think you have to provide the story. Right.
That's absolutely correct. It's not a singular person's contract. Contracts are bilateral. It's when that person are entering into this contract. When you get into a relationship, you and she are entering into this contract to where she could keep her ex-boyfriends calling and coming by. You and she are entering into this contract to where what's hers is hers and what's yours is y'all's. Right? You're entering into these dynamics where you can't put decorations up nowhere in the house. Like she's designing every room that you're financing part of. You know, these are things that you have to, and people talk about nipping things in the bud and letting things go on for too long. Once you allow for things to create and germinate how it is, you're in violation when you try to change the terms of the agreement midstream. This is how it's been since I met you. Now, all of a sudden, you have a problem with it. Right. I gave an example previously about two people got together young and they used to go out to clubs and they used to go out to concerts and this and that. And then 5 years later, she found Christ and she decided she was going to go to the church And she wanted him to then get baptized. And he was like, that's not the contract in which we entered on. You are in violation of our immediate contract. And therefore, there would have to be an amendment or ratification of our original contract in order for me to rock with you in this new frame that you want to be in. I'm happy for you in the Lord, but I'm not on that.
Are you saying if you didn't say nothing the first time she started decorating, or the second time, that you signed the contract?
Absolutely. Silence is compliance. Absolutely.
Oh, come on.
Absolutely. Science is. Ask your people, ask your village. They helping you with your session. If you just let stuff go, I have no choice but to believe you like it. I had a boss one time to tell me all work is voluntary. The fact that you keep cashing this direct deposit lets me know you want to be here. Because if you didn't, the direct deposit you would reject. You would say, I'm not taking this. I'm not accepting this. They tried to give you a check one time and you was like, I'm not even touching that check. I'm not letting them think I agree with this.
Okay, that's true. So we do have a comment.
Okay.
We cannot assume everyone knows the difference between the levels of reciprocity. Balance, negative, or generalized all exist. I agree with over-explaining.
Well, the idea is with saying that we cannot assume anything. It's in the beginning. Here's the situation. After a while, there are things that what is understood does not have to be explained. There are things that I'll give you a great psychological example. I sleep on a certain side of the bed. It would be disconcerting if I came in one night and she was on my side. Now, could I sleep on the other side? When we go to hotels, do I say that's my side? I'm a left side guy? No. But there's experiments where if you ever been to a class or a training and it was more than one day and you sat in seat 5, the likelihood of you sitting in seat 5 the next day, if the same people show up, is almost 95+% because people are creatures of habit. Now, there's no sign, there's no rule, there's no assigned seating. But once we establish something, that is what it is. But to assume seat 5 is your seat, you have to have some wiggle room in that regard. It has to be explained that, hey, and if you want seat 5, a conversation has to ensue. But you demanding that person get up out your seat, that's not your seat. That's not your seat. Same situation where you let somebody get away with something and they got away with it 2 or 3 times. Let's say it's a week-long class. You sat in seat 5 day 1. The next day, it was a woman that wasn't there the day before. She happened to sit in seat 5. The next day when she comes in, if you don't beat her, seat 5 is her seat. There's no reason for you to get mad on Thursday. When you sat there Monday, she sat there Tuesday, Wednesday. Now y'all fighting over it on Thursday? You have to make sure that you express and communicate where you are allowing for your emotions to tie into the situation. Because what happens in relationships, business partnerships, work dynamics, religious situations, is that you let negative emotions fester unresolved. And you build up all this venom quietly. The Bible says it's better to be rebuked openly than loved silently, right? So I would rather you tell me up front, let me know what it is, what time it is, what set you claiming, as opposed to act like we cool and we not.
So I personally believe that the silent contract is a bad contract. I think it's okay if you in the seat a couple times, I have the right to come back and renegotiate the terms and put a sign up because obviously you don't understand what I understood on the contract.
Mm-hmm. It's usually it's usually a lack of communication that causes this type of frustration. My issue with you saying that the silent contract is the bad contracts is that contracts are always being renegotiated and ratified, and it's not always through words. Sometimes it's through EQ. Sometimes it's through emotional intelligence. Let me give you an example. You come home every day and she cooks, okay? And she feeds you. And then one day you come home and you realize it's not smelling like nothing in here. And when you walk in, she's in the bed. And you say, everything cool? I had a migraine today. You're like, well, the contract said that you feed me when I come home. That doesn't have to be articulated. That's kind of an understood pivot. And then because circumstances occur, life happens. And so for you to be so prescriptive to this is how it's always been, and you always ran my bath water and made me brontosaurus burgers. No, you have to be nimble and understand the situation and peep the situation. So sometimes you have to peep the scene and realize what I thought was going to happen. Obviously, it's not happening. How do I then adjust? And then is this a new normal or is this just a blip and not a trend? And so in that regard, I'm not saying you have to express yourself and demand an answer. I'm saying sometimes it's cool to be cool and realize this is bigger than me. Let me step back and see if this is an ongoing thing Or is it a situation where a year later, I might have to do something different because you've emotionally moved on, obviously.
I could talk about that all day, but let's go to the chat.
Okay.
Daniel Young saying, I'm not babysitting. If I loan you money and you said I'll pay you back, that's it. I'm not reminding you
I agree with that.
because
I
you
agree
know
with
you
that.
owe me. If you don't get it back, you just signed up for the new contract.
Once again, though, I think that's fair and I think it's common. My question to Daniel Young would be, how many times can I do that before we fisticuffing? How many times can I get you for your hard-earned money before you feel like you trying to punk me? Ain't gonna be no pimping.
Okay. So sometimes family fall out. Can you
Mm-hmm.
give me an example of a family contract that went bad? Maybe with parents or with siblings or at Thanksgiving?
I think in my experience, and I try to always, if I can, speak from experience to try to connect. But in my experience, the family contract is the respect for grandma. Like that's the, at least in Black communities, the respect for grandma and grandma stuff. She ain't got a lot and she proud of it, is the family contract. But you always end up in situations where somebody's pilfering grandma, you know what I'm saying, for more than their share, or somebody's stealing from grandma, or somebody's always living off of or with grandma. Those are family contracts that are being infringed upon. And somebody has to stand up because grandma feels the burden of the family and she doesn't realize that she has birthed bad actors. She doesn't realize that she's created a series of people who just can't get right and don't mean her no good and themselves no good. So I think those are some of the most common family contracts that are infringed upon, is we take advantage of our elderly, or we don't look after our elderly when they need us to step in when they've done it for all these years.
Okay. So just so you know, I'm still with just Chevy on the over explaining. I want to explain. Okay. So when you have migraines,
Yes.
just text me and then I'll get the dinner. Like something has to be explained to me. But that's just
Listen,
my part of
I
the
think it's
contract.
that's convenient, but there's going to be times where you have to get over yourself and that it's not about you today. It seems like y'all really want it to be about y'all daily, momently, eventually. But the reality of it is there's going to be times where somebody dropped the ball or something didn't go your way and you have to evaluate, okay, this happens. But you judge people by their consistency and continuity. You judge people by the total aspect of their character and what they've done. It's going to be times where you do show up late to pick me to work. So 117 times you was there. The first time you wasn't there on time, I'm not going crazy because something must have happened. It's not even a conversation we need to have. You
Yeah.
gonna come in and be like, dude, I am so sorry. Don't even worry about it, bro. That shit happens. We can move on. There's no reason to strain our relationship. Instead, you like, I'm waiting. I'm not even going to get in the car. That doesn't make sense.
Waiting for that apology. Yes.
That's right.
But
The
that's
best apology is, but the best apology is what?
it's change behavior.
Change behavior.
And
Not restitution. Listen, I'm late to pick you up from work. I can change the behavior to pick you up on time again. How can there be restitution?
pick you up with a cookie.
Shit. Okay.
Let's go to the chat again. So Tracy is saying you cannot have clear expectation without communication. Expectations need to be clear to reduce misunderstanding.
I agree with that. But what you have to understand is some expectations are unrealistic. You have to know your audience. Okay. I go into an argument with you and I'm speaking Greek or German, and then I said what I said. The expectations have been established as far as I'm concerned. This is why contracts are bilateral. It takes two to tango. You know what I'm saying? So in the idea of when you establish these understood dynamics, I need for you to agree that you understood. I'll give you a parental example. When my daughters get in trouble and get disciplined, after the disciplining, I say, do you understand why that just happened? Why I was just yelling at you or whatever the case? And I need them to explain to me what had happened, because people have what is called revisionist history. And in their mind, I was just sitting there doing this and he came in going off, throwing shoes. And no, that's not what happened. That's how you felt, but that's not what happened. So it's always good to articulate that. But it has to be understood before we walk away, before we break the huddle. Did you see it how I saw it? Because two people can see the same. This happens in police situations all the time. Two people see the same activity, the same criminality, and have different accounts of the situation because of implicit bias and all these other reasons. So it's good to have people in your life that are on the same wavelength and dialogue in which the way you dialogue. Because what happens is there's going to be people in your life by design not by choice, at your job or wherever, where no matter what you say, they would have still voted for Trump. No matter what you say, they would have still not took the vaccinations. They are dying at the desk and saying, I don't believe in this. So trying to have converting conversations is a problem with people who don't want to be on the same belief level that you're on.
So Sydney says, so be more late by making a cookie stop. I don't want the cookie. No. You leave early, get the cookie, and put it on the dashboard so the sun warms the cookie. So it's warm.
Or if you got an old enough car, you don't need the sun.
Yeah. Put it up. So do you have any tools to stop? Because one of the biggest contract violators is a partner in a relationship. Any tools to stop some of this nagging and this arguing?
So the breach of contract is, first of all, I think that you have to establish up front, golly, for the show, it's for your session, bro. I'm gonna get myself in trouble. Had a conversation where I was told, do you just not care what I be telling you? To which my honest response was, not all the time. I don't believe you sometimes when you say things, because sometimes she's hyperbolic. Sometimes I'll never fill in the blank. That's not true. You're just saying something because of the moment. And so, yes, I do dismiss things at times. But if you really are about that and believe that, it behooves you to make sure you say, listen, you got one more. You have to make me understand the severity that this is to you, because I'm obviously, based on my physical reaction, not seeing it the way you're seeing it. In the idea of these contracts and walking away with a clear understanding, it's cool to have contracts with a person that's consistent within their relationship dynamic. The worst person to have a contract with is a person that's all over the place, because they're constantly coming back to amend the contract based off of micro circumstances. When it's convenient for them, they want to say, well, yes, normally, but, and that's not a good relationship. A good relationship has stability and nice continuity. What say you?
That's not good faith negotiation. If the whole contract is in your favor, I wouldn't sign that.
I've heard in the past people say, I have a right to change my mind. And this is not an inaccurate statement. It's not a non-believable statement. But then I have a right to deal or not deal with people who arbitrarily change their mind based off no receipts or based off of just the whim of the moment. If you're that powerful that you can dictate the terms and that could be a matter of your convenience, where you're changing your mind, yes, you do. I cannot factually say you don't have a right to change your mind. I can absolutely say I don't want to be part of that. I need something to hold on to. I need something to believe in. And if you always arbitrarily changing your mind, this is not for us. There is a dude out there. There's a chick out there that love people that keep it spontaneous and that change their mind all the time and keep it fluid. I just happen to be not one of those folks. So you have to make decisions that's best for you.
I think a lot of people like consistency too.
You would think. You would think.
When I think about the change the mind, then I have to think, what's the opposite? Do you also have a right to be accountable?
You have a responsibility to be accountable. There has to be a level of accountability. That's the formula.
But you never miss if you change your mind. If I say I was supposed to cook and then I don't, then what happened? That means I missed it. I say, no, I didn't miss it. I just changed my mind.
Absolutely. Some people put up with that. There's someone for everyone. And some people put up with that and they find that to be spicy. That's keeping spice. It's keeping that relationship spicy. You know what I'm saying? You know, this is, to me, that's the Dwight Howard jumping out the closet. I don't want that type of spice, right?
Well, I don't know nobody who said they want their relationship.
You'd be surprised.
We have another comment in the chat, just Chevy. There's also a level of transparency required. Alert them beforehand. Think preventative measures. Was there preventative measures you could have taken when there were things that you were ignoring?
I think that we have to be careful in how we set this up, because relationships, long-term relationships, are just that, long-term. And somebody said earlier, I don't have time to babysit. I shouldn't have to. When you speak another language, you have to translate your native tongue in your head before you speak into that. So there's a gap. There's there's 3-second delay. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm constantly thinking, what should I say to make sure that he or she gets what I'm saying? I try to avoid those as much as possible, because that's exhausting. It's exhausting to have to translate or break things or dumb it down for the person that you're trying to go somewhere positive with. They aren't on your level. Accept that and move on. If you're in a relationship where you feel like I have to put in crayon everything that I want done, how I want it done, and when I want it done, because the fact is people are going to show you who they are in their actions. Don't believe somebody that tells you they love you. Believe those that show you they love you. And if you can accumulate the actions, so a picture is worth 1,000 words and an action is worth 1,000 pictures. So just do the math, right? Don't multiply it by 0. And you're in a situation where somebody's consistently showing you who they are. Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them. And so in the idea of this person has shown you they could give a damn about you saying, I don't want you smoking in the house, or I don't want you doing this or doing that. I don't feel comfortable when you drive fast when I'm on the highway. And then every time we get in the car, you revving up the engine because you think that's cute. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do me like that again. First time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. So you have to have thresholds and realize what's a weighted value for your happiness. Stuff that I would put up with, I've heard people say, there's no way, I'll give it to my brother-in-law. There's no way I would put up with this or that. Okay, well, he's not with someone. He made a choice, and I respect that. But then there's a give and take for everything. Some stuff is not all or nothing, and you have to kind of pick your poison. It's called the Pareto principle, where there's an 80-20 rule. 80% of the things that I absolutely need to get done are getting done all the time, or at least most of the time. So I have to kind of understand and accept that. I can't focus on the 20% that I wish. This idea of 100%, that contract is bad. You have to have some plus minus 5%, 10%, or whatever. Nothing's infallible. Nothing's perfect in that regard. And so we can't be so prescriptive to the contract that the first time something goes bad, or even depending on the time frame, the second time it goes bad. I'd be mad as hell if I messed up once and then I messed up similar or the same way 25 years later, and you like, I told you the last time. If you did it again, it was like, that's a little too much for me. So don't be that person either.
Okay. So realize that there's contracts. To make good and even better contracts, you have to keep negotiating the terms
It's
and
a constant
communicate.
reevaluation.
And
Absolutely.
you want to make sure you have a good contract so you don't end up on a label where they dancing all in the video.
The situation is this. I think that we talk about the assessment and the reevaluation, and those conversations have to be had, because if you're existing in business or in relationships or in friendships on the original contract, that means that you're telling me neither one of you have grown since the contract was designed, since the contract was agreed to. And that's sad. That's very sad. As you grow, things are going to change. It's going to be small nuances. But you have to say, okay, hey, are we still doing that? Are we still on that? Do we still need to have it that frequently? Can we kind of pull back? Things change. And when they change, you have to be willing to adjust accordingly and be honest with yourself and your partner.
Okay. There is a middle finger to you in the chat.
Okay, I appreciate that.
No, just
based off of.
No,
Okay. And so, once again, communication and transparency is the key, but you got to be willing to hear this game.
Speaking of the game and the colorful contract, you have a colorful ensemble on today.
So first of all, to your esteemed session of folks, this is the Easter outfit. We're coming up on Good Friday. Easter's coming up. Y'all not going to see me on Easter because I don't do Sundays. I do Wednesdays. And then, of course, this is Autism Awareness Month. So the pen is for those who have loved ones or who want to support autism awareness. This is the month for it, in the month of April. It's all appropriate. It's all appropriate. Everything is a strategy.
Okay. It is. It is over here too. So tell us about this dream, Coach. Tell us about the dream.
Man, so dream of the week. The dream of the week. And there's the actual poll out. Please go to the site and check out the poll to see if we should keep up the dreams of the week, because I have a person that I live with that absolutely hates this section of your session. But the reality of it is, so we interpret dreams and we talk about dreams a lot in our sessions, and it's a funny way to end the session with levity. And so my dream this week, the dream of the week that won, was my spouse had been talking about moving to a better place. Sell this place, move to a better place. And sometimes this is not her. I'm not putting this on her. She's not going to hear this anyway. But I don't want to hear nobody come back and say they thought this about her because of my dream. Okay, the dreams aren't real. They're dreams. But she wanted to move to a better place. And in the dream, it was a place with predominantly not us being part of the neighborhood makeup. Okay, so We found a place. It was really nice. It just happened in this dream to be a townhouse. And she likes a lot of natural light. So it was a lot of natural light coming through the townhouse, that type of situation. And it was a neighborhood where the kids had their bikes on the front lawn and people left their garage up even overnight. And it was just and she just loved it. Everything was good. Everything was white in the house and bright, and everything was wonderful. Stainless steel, all of that kind of stuff. And I am laying on the floor, on the carpet, as I did when I was a child. I can't even get up no more if I try to do that. But I was laying on the floor watching TV. Front door is open. We had a screen door because we don't have screen doors here. You have a screen door, dang. But we don't have screen doors. But anyway, we had a screen door, and then the back door was open to let this light in because you got the mesh screen. And I'm laying there on the carpet. I don't even know what show I was watching, but the front door open. And the dude came in and walked past me on the floor, walked through the kitchen, and left out the back door because it was like a community. And so she came out and was like, what the hell was that? And I jumped up and I chased him out. But when I get out the back door, it's a whole bunch of them out there. And they just congregating and talking.
In the backyard?
In the back. It wasn't our backyard. It was like I don't know if you ever lived in a townhome, but it's like a community space. It's like, and I realized he thought this was like a shortcut or a pass through. Like we was all that cool.
It was.
I was so offended.
Was it barbecue out there?
Man, they was out there drinking like colorful drinks and just talk like it wasn't nothing to them, but it was I was so stunned in the dream. I'm so stunned by this stranger walking through the crib and like he didn't look at nothing. He didn't say well. So when you enter a room, you're supposed to speak. He didn't speak. It was just I believe I told myself in the dream that this is what they do. We had just moved here. So we didn't know if you keep your door open, that means you could just shortcut through the spot.
Yeah.
He didn't take off his shoes and nothing. Yeah. And we had carpet. Huh?
Did you find him?
No, I didn't, because there was too many of them. In the dream, I was that person that couldn't tell a lot of people apart. I'm not that person in real life, but in the dream, there's like 7 of him out there. Handsome young man.
But she was upset.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God, yes. She was devastated. Like, we shouldn't have to shut our door for people not to. We shouldn't have to shut our door for people not to just walk in when they feel like it. It was pretty.
There's a lock on the screen though.
Man, the screen is so long. It was a dream.
Daniel says those rib tips be fire at the.
It was amazing. It was amazingly audacious for him to just walk through the crib.
So, do you have a fear of getting too comfortable with your neighbors?
Yes.
Okay, it was coming out in the dream.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we moved around a lot when I was a kid, and we never really we wasn't really neighborly like that. Like, we cordial, and my wife's the same way. We cordial with the neighbors, but we don't know them. We're not trying to get caught up in no RICO cases or like we really good at minding our business. Now, we'll look after your stuff if we see something out there too, you know what I'm saying? We don't want no problems over here. So we're not going to let problems come over here. But yeah, you could be beating your spouse and everything. Ain't got nothing to do with we don't get cool.
So you don't want to move. Because everything you didn't like was in this dream. You don't like bikes. You don't like garages up.
See, it's the dualistic aspect of what is nice and appropriate. And what is nice to some people and appropriate to some people is not just universally nice and appropriate. I think that we all have to understand everybody don't like natural light. Everybody don't like, now I'm going to take you here for a moment. Everybody don't like furniture you can't sit on. You know what I'm saying? You got that room that's like a showcase. For what?
I hate
not that cold.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I grew up in a situation where I had people that had plastic runners. Like my best friend mama had a runner that we had to walk on the runner through the crib. Well, I don't know if she didn't realize when you finally clean this place or get this up, that's going to be a different color just off natural, wear and tear.
And you're about to replace some new carpet in the middle.
Yes, exactly.
So this is just Chevy. Is your current neighborhood transitioning?
No, it's good. Let me say this. If it is, I don't know. I'm not that. I mind my own business. I pay taxes. I'm here. We wave at the mailbox. I don't know nobody's name besides my immediate neighbor. The lady on the other side passed away. Didn't know her name before she passed. God bless her, rest her soul. But
you didn't go to the funeral?
No, didn't even know. Listen, dog, the other neighbor a little involved. He's a little involved. So she was dead and gone 4 months before we realized it. Me and my wife was complaining about her grass being too high, looking like Jumanji over there. And then when I was like, hey, I don't know what's up with the old girl, with her grass. He was like, oh, she died in February. Okay, cool. He was like, you didn't see the fire trucks? And no, they had nothing to do with me, cuz. Didn't know nothing about nothing. When it happened, I was out of town.
Chevy said the Rico case is crazy, Coach.
I'm just saying.
Do you think her death is part of the Rico case?
I have no idea.
Was it fentanyl?
Once again,
did she sell drugs?
Won't be nothing that I could testify to comfortably. I am very, very comfortable in the fact that she deserved to be here because she paid for her crib. I paid for my crib. We both have receipts, I'm assuming. That's all I know.
Well, I think the lesson is that you can't take your crib with you when you die.
Yeah, but it was nice. Her place bigger than mine. So good times. So anything else from your tribe that we wanted to get through before we jump out of here?
No, we are done. We appreciate you.
All right, cool. Once again, happy Easter to y'all. Make sure y'all tune in next week to Coach's Decision with Chris P. Reed. Bring your baggage and drop it off, and we'll sort through it. Until next week, we want you to take it easy, or at least take it any way you can get it. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell a friend, and tell a friend. See y'all next week.